Um, but now that we have the recording started, I think we can get it going. So this is our fourth session around planning. This will be kind of our next deeper dive into those different components from the sustainability
Mhm.
self-assessment. And then I am just going to go ahead and pass it over to Lindsay to kind of take it away.
Thank you. So, like Danielle shared, today we are launching into our final session about sustainability, self-assessment. We will be reviewing the final three framework components that are you'll see in the self-assessment, and we'll be talking through a sample process that you all could choose to use when engaging your council as part of the self-assessment. And you don't have to do it exactly like we talked through, but this is just sort of an idea to share that as a recommendation, knowing that we will be asking in by the 26th to share sort of some results back with us. So just knowing that that sort of is going to be an ask, and then we'll follow up with some questions and next steps. So we're going to move forward from there. And then I will be passing it over to Monique.
Good afternoon. I almost spoke with my mic muted, but I'm getting it together. Welcome again to our third mini session, as Danielle and Lindsay mentioned. So by now you all should be familiar with this definition of sustainability. So I won't take up too much time reviewing it, but I do want to remind you all that the activities can, of course, evolve over time, adjusting to different changes of the levels and support and needs of the community. So these could change over time, of course. So as I mentioned, we will cover our last three framework components during this session. And of course, we have the same list that we've had the past two sessions, which lists out different ways that you can use the self-assessment tool for reference. You will be asked to submit a plan, so this tool can be very helpful on ways to focus your effort when developing your plan. And as a reminder, you will get a copy of these PowerPoint slides for review, so that way you'll be able to take some time on your own to review it. And then just again, this list kind of just is very helpful when you are working on that self-assessment. So of course, these levels should look familiar to you all by now. So this is the levels of the rubric. And as a reminder, again, this rubric is not intended to be definitive. You may know your council may not fit each description perfectly, but these levels are good to reference and kind of illustrates a continuum along the way which you might progress as you go through each of those components. So these are the three framework components we are working on today. For our last three, we have efficiency and effectiveness, capacity, and funding diversification. So our first component we're focusing on is efficiency and effectiveness, as I mentioned. So the first aspect of this component is the HTC operations maximize the ability of those being served to participate and produce intended results. So for the pre-awareness level, we're looking at those being served are not consulted in the program design and implementation. So an example of this would be the HEC has program aimed at improving health literacy, but has not engaged the target population. So they're not hearing from that community. The program is designed without that specific input, which could result in, of course, low participation and engagement without that feedback from the direct community. The awareness level, feedback from those being served has a little influence on the program design and implementation. And as we move along to interaction, we're gaining more feedback through formal methods such as surveys, focus groups, and those are used to design and guide the program implementation. And then finally, at that mastery level, those receiving services have an integral role in program design and implementation. So an example of this would be the HEC has a continuous feedback loop where participants in health literacy program co-create the curriculum and delivery methods. Participation rates are high, and the program consistently meets the objectives of improving health literacy and outcomes. second aspect to this component is program approach is based on the successes and challenges of similar initiatives. So for that first pre-awareness level, the programs developed without knowledge of any evidence-based programs or consultations with other similar successful programs. So an example would be if the HEC starts a smoking cessation program without researching any similar initiatives or programs. And with that being an example, the program struggles with low engagement and high dropout rates. For the awareness level, programs, I'm sorry, my daughter's in the background. So with the second level of awareness, programs develop with superficial understanding of similar initiatives. For that third level, the programs develop following consultation with others who have implemented similar programs. So they're starting to engage with others who have had some prior knowledge and experience in that area. And then finally, with the mastery level, programs are derived from evidence-based initiatives. So an example here, with the same similar example for the smoking cessation program, there is a model of success incorporating practices, lessons learned from similar initiatives. It is regularly updated in this approach based on any new research that's coming out. They're sharing success with other organizations, which will contribute to the broader field. And that final aspect for efficiency and effectiveness is the HEC draws from and contributes to existing community resources. So for the pre-awareness level here, HEC operates independently of other related community initiatives. So example of this, the HEC runs a standalone mental health counseling service without connecting with local community centers or mental health organizations. Many community resources remain untapped. For the awareness level, we have services that draw from and offer limited support to other related community initiatives. As we're going into the interaction level, we have provides unique and complementary services to the community. And then for that mastery level, has an integrated role in the provision of services in the community. Others recognize and support that role. So example of this would look like the HEC is a support in the community for mental health resources, coordinating with multiple organizations to provide comprehensive support. It contributes its expertise and resources to community initiatives and helps to build capacity among partner organizations. So our next framework component we're going to cover is capacity. So the aspect of this component, the HEC has adequate capacity, I can talk, to complete programs based on personnel with necessary skills and knowledge and experience with projects of similar scope or focus. So for this level, staff and experience do not match the magnitude or focus of the proposed work. Example of this would be the HEC does not have a list of staff qualifications and skills, leading to staff members who lack expertise being assigned a larger scale of health community assessment projects without any prior experiences, which could of course result in delays and errors. That next level of awareness, the HEC has an understanding of the necessary staff and experience in order to implement a similar project. If we move into interaction, the HEC understands necessary staffing levels and capabilities and has that experience in implementing unrelated projects of a similar magnitude. And of course, finally, for that mastery level, the HEC has a track record of completing projects of similar magnitude within a budget and on time. So an example of what the mastery level could look like, the HEC's personnel are highly skilled and seamlessly apply their extensive experience and strategies from numerous successful projects to meet all targets ahead of a schedule and under budget for a recent federal grant. Our final component is funding diversification. And the aspect of this component is the HEC receives diversity of support generated through sustainability planning. So for the pre-awareness level, supported by a single funding source, the HEC does not engage in any sustainability planning. So an example would look like the HEC relying solely on one single annual government grant for its entire operation. There is no proactive effort to seek additional funding sources. The council members aren't aware of the potential benefits of diversifying their support base. As we move into the awareness level, they're supported by more than one resource, but without the benefit of sustainability planning. As they go into the interaction level, they're supported by a variety of resources developed through an ad hoc approach to sustainability planning. And finally, in the mastery level, there's multiple sources contributing to adequate funding for a long-term continuation. There's support generated through formal and ongoing sustainability planning. And this example will look like the HEC has established a robust sustainability plan that is regularly updated. They receive support from a diverse range of sources, including federal grants, private foundations, corporate partnerships, and other community donations. The HEC hosts annual fundraising events and has developed a strong volunteer network. This diverse support ensures the HEC's activities are well-funded and sustainable in the long term, allowing them to innovate and expand their programs. I understand that was a lot. But as you know, we do want to share this out with you for you to have some time to look at it at your own convenience and kind of look through those levels and those different components. But we do want to open up any questions, feedbacks, or thoughts on those final three components that we did discuss. Again, efficiency and effectiveness, capacity, and funding diversification. So if we have any questions, feedback, any thoughts on those components, this is a space to do so now before we do our larger discussion.
I thought it was really good. Do you have a anticipated date on when you all would like to see the self-assessment take place?
Yeah, great question. So once we finish up our larger discussion, Lindsay and Danielle will cover what that assessment and what we're looking for a deliverable from you all, and then again what those deadlines look like. So we're almost there, Jason. But great
Okay.
question.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other thoughts on those final three components? Oh, you're fine, Jason. We love it. Thank you. All right, I'm not hearing anything or not seeing anything in the chat. So at this time, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Laura for our larger group discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monique. So we are actually going to do a couple different polls with all of you to kind of get a temperature check for where you're at in terms of these components that were just shared with you by Monique. So Lindsay, I believe you are going to take it away and launch the first poll. We'll get some feedback from all of you. So we'll give you a couple minutes to answer this question. And then I want to hear from you guys before we move on to the next poll. So you should see here on your screen, of the three sustainability components presented today, which do you feel your council excels the most in? Is it efficiency and effectiveness, capacity, or funding diversification? So take a minute to think about that. Think about where your council is at and answer the poll so we can get some feedback from all of you.
Okay, we are 100% completed, so I will release the results, Laura.
Thanks, Lindsay. Awesome. All right. So we've got kind of like a even vote here between these top two. So efficiency and effectiveness, 40% of you voted for that component. Capacity, 47% of you feel like your council excels most in terms of capacity. And 13%, just 13% of you chose funding diversification as what your council excels the most in. So the majority being capacity. I'm curious to hear from somebody who chose this. Why you chose capacity as your council excelling in the most? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Don't be shy, y'all.
First question. Social.
Uh-oh. Adam, if you were answering, we lost ya. I think I saw Jason come off mute.
I came off mute, but I was having an issue with the poll, but I feel as if for Ingham County, we're actively working on funding diversification and if efficiency and effectiveness. And the reason why for funding diversification, I know that we've between Dana and myself, we've shared a lot of resources that have come down the pipeline, especially from MPHI and the state of Michigan, as well as going after grants ourselves and receiving grants for efficiency and effectiveness. We, as a team, have hired a new staff member. Well, I'm not saying it right. Dana, not me, has hired a new staff member. And his name is Keontae. He's very, very good at just really just helping us check all the boxes and being as efficient as possible. And that's trickling down to our health equity councils and ensuring up that we're really trying to, I used the word connect the dots already, I apologize, but really just trying to make sure that we are aligning ourselves with the appropriate resources to sustain ourselves. That's the best way to put it. So there you go.
Thank you so
Mhm.
much, Jason. That was a great response, great reflection from your team, your Health Equity Council. So a little bit of both. And I'm sure others on this learning collaborative today who may feel like there's a couple different areas that your council excels in, or maybe you feel like you're doing good at all three and just need to continue moving forward and expanding those efforts. So love to hear funding diversification as one of them, because that was one of the lesser voted on. So diversifying funds for sustainability is important. Okay. I think we can move on to the next poll. Oh my gosh,
I did see Joyce had her hand up, Laura.
Yeah, I don't want to miss anybody. Joyce, if you
Yes, I
would
was.
like to share.
I wanted to say that I think I put down capacity because I think we have the right people around the table to do it. I think they have the determination and they really want to make an impact on the community. I think we've been pretty efficient and effective, but I think capacity is number one. What we're having to work on is the funding diversification. We're just beginning to do that. We're having some people call on the Health Equity Council because of the things we've accomplished and asking us to come in on grants with other people now. So we're working in that direction at this point, but I think that we were probably a little lacking in that area. So we are going in that direction now.
Thank you for sharing that, Joyce. That's so great to hear. And capacity is such a critical part of sustainability, especially as you shared, when you have the right people at the table who are passionate about keeping the work moving forward when other things might fall by the wayside. So you got to have that committed team. And I'm glad that you shared, Joyce, because now other folks are also raising their hands. So we're getting other reflections as well from folks. So Nicole, I think your hand was raised first, if you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to kind of speak to, I chose the efficiency and effectiveness because I think the thing that we really do well, so I was looking at the contributes to existing community resources. I was thinking about that a lot because one thing that we prioritize within our council, but then also significantly as a community, is we really try to not duplicate services. So I think everything that we're bringing forward to the community, it's really because there's been an identified gap. And then as we're evolving those projects and initiatives, it's based upon, okay, what worked, what challenges did we have? So I think in respect to that, we're doing a really good job. And I just wanted to share our experience with that one.
I love that. So really responsive to the community needs and what you're hearing from the community and making sure that your efforts are informed by them is really, really important. You're filling those gaps along the way where others are not doing that work. So it's already critical for you to continue doing that. Calvin, I see your hand raised as well.
So as Nicole and Joyce have pointed out, my thoughts are similar to both of theirs. Like capacity is like we got the right people at the table, you know what I mean? And so and those people at the table, they are at various levels of the work, you know what I mean? And so it is borrowing from, and then also borrowing from our experiences, borrowing from our learnings, borrowing from things that are already in existence, and 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 it's done like more of a in a group like way, you know what I mean? And so I think that is the first phase of being able to get to the efficiency in the diversified funding, because we have all those things in mind. It's just, it's like the capacity. Do we have the capacity? Do we have the know-how? Do we have the strength, the ability to be able to do? So it's like both of what Joyce and Nicole said. So thank you.
Absolutely. And when you have that capacity and you build out those relationships and strengthen those relationships as well, that becomes so much more vital to the work and ensuring that people are engaged in what you're doing. So we love to hear it. Any other thoughts or feedback from folks before we move on to our next question? Awesome. That was really great feedback for our first question. All right, let's move on to question 2 in the poll. All right, so question number 2, which component do you feel your council needs more support in? Is it efficiency and effectiveness, capacity, or funding diversification? So some of you kind of already touched on this, but where do you feel your council may need a little bit more support in? We'll take a couple minutes here. All right. Looks like we've got some results. And it looks majority overwhelmingly are feeling like funding diversification is where your council may need some more support in. So 55% of those here today chose funding diversification. Efficiency and effectiveness was next at 27%, and capacity was at 18%. So again, really kind of aligns with our last question. It's kind of a flip-flop here of where we saw folks maybe felt like they weren't excelling as much as the council with funding diversification. Now we're getting confirmation that that may be where we need the most support in, is that funding diversification. So we had some folks share a little bit from the last question. Does anyone who chose this want to share where their council's at or where they feel like maybe there could be some more support needed? Joyce.
Yes, this is a very interesting question. Been talking about this the last week or so. I think as we started out with a large sum of money. We were working with many grants and all that. And I don't think at least I wasn't forward thinking as we look at funding diminishing and having to look for other funding sources. So I think our backs are against the wall a little bit, but I think we have garnered some great support because we've done great work, which has brought us to the attention of some folk who could use some people with feet on the ground to get some things done. But I think that maybe we should have started in the beginning with the fact that these dollars are not going to be here always, and that we needed to be talking about diversifying how the money that can sustain the efforts we have. And I don't think we all started thinking that way. At least I was not anyway, but we are thinking about that now because we have some good things going. We'd like to see them continue.
Thank you, Joyce. I think that's really helpful reflection for our team too, as well, when we're moving forward with future projects, that we really emphasize thinking about sustainability from the very start, and knowing that that funding could shift at any time. And so that really needs to be built into those future plans. So that's really helpful for our team to really hear as well. Nicole, I think your hand might have been up next.
Calvin and I are racing after every question. This is our new game today. I wrote the funding diversity because I think we're in an interesting space, because I think really, like, there are a lot of opportunities in our community, and there's a lot of interest in having groups that are put together, right? So funders can lean on these groups and get feedback. And so I'm kind of almost thinking about, what service can this group provide beyond this immediate funding circle, right? So we have quite a few philanthropic entities in our community that I think they can perhaps leverage this group in the future. And then also we have really strong universities in our community. And I'm kind of thinking, like, beyond this next year plus, is there a way that perhaps we can integrate this existing group into another group that has more solid funding? Like, we know that the university has, a lot of community initiatives that more than likely will be well funded for quite some time. So if we can't acquire our own funding, is there another way that perhaps we could leverage a different community partner and integrate a really solid council and kind of assist with their needs and have it kind of fall under their umbrella instead?
I love that reflection, Nicole. I think those are such innovative strategies for sustainability, and that, when you are running into challenges or barriers with funding diversification, maybe there's kind of an out of the box way of approaching different funding. So maybe it's not funneling through your organization, maybe it's where your organization shifts to ensure that your work can continue to move forward. And I think you and Joyce both brought up really good points of really kind of highlighting the work that you're doing and the work that you've achieved as councils, because it is so invaluable to the community, and just so innovative in the work that you've already achieved. So I think that alone shows how critical it is for these councils to exist in some capacity long term, whatever that shape may be. Calvin.
So I chose efficiency and effectiveness to kind of like follow that suit, that first thought that I was having. And so, yes, we all need funding, you know what I mean? And so the reason why, and I love the thought that both Joyce and Nicole shared. The reason why I thought in terms of funding being last, because I know there's a lot of funding available. And so the efficiency and effectiveness comes into how do we understand? We got the right people at the table. We know we're capable of doing the right thing, but what do that look like? And so what makes it interesting is a lot of the garbage that we have gathered through our having done this work, right? That has been inequitable. We have to undo, you know what I mean? And so that's the effectiveness. That's what effectiveness come in. And so once we've done actions to create that sort of effectiveness. And so when I hear people talking about how they've got funding, you know what I'm saying, in addition to the one sum of funding we received, like that speaks volume to me, you know what I'm saying, in terms of like what we need to be doing in order to diversify our funding. We have to be efficient and effective, and that means understanding, you know, uh, um, that the proof of concept that we have, you know what I'm saying, um, that we're developing is first and foremost, and then once we map that out and have it laid as it's supposed to, now we can get those other things. But in our effectiveness, I think a lot of it has been dealing with our trauma. You know what I'm saying, and unwilling to share our resources because of fear. You know what I mean, from a community level. And so after we have gotten past those barriers, we can be more effective, and now we can focus on funding and, sustainability. So it's confirmation. A lot of our work was done like this funding is going to end here. This funding going to end here. You know what I mean? So we was doing something for the short term as opposed to the long term, the long term take care of the short term, I believe, and I think that as we figure that part out, we'll be okay. So those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you so much. That was such a really great perspective, Calvin, and really thinking about how strategic sustainability is and planning for sustainability. So it's not just knowing that you need diversified funds because they're out there. There are philanthropic organizations and other opportunities to get funding, but what do those steps look like? And what type of funding are we trying to seek? How strategic are we being with that funding? And something else that I heard in a meeting earlier today that really resonated with me was if the funding parameters don't serve the needs of the community itself in this specific project, the community will probably not take the funding because it really also has to meet the needs of what you're trying to achieve. So there's so many strategies that go into being efficient and effective with sustainability beyond just knowing we need more money and we know it's out there. How do we get it? There's so many steps involved in that, and making sure that it's really intentional in what you do. Nicole, your hand is raised.
Yeah, that just made me think of something else. Obviously the funding is great. We really love to be able to support our members, but I think an overarching thing that's really important to our council is that regardless of funding, their voices continue to be heard. And I think that's like the big value component here is, hey, if we can't do the cool stuff that we've always been doing, okay, it's a bummer, but I think ultimately they want to make sure that they continue to be heard and that there is an opportunity for them to provide feedback, both, locally, statewide, and then potentially nationally. So I think that's kind of another component that perhaps in some ways is more valuable than the funding, right?
Yeah, such great insight. Calvin, do you have a reaction to that?
And I don't want no one to think that I'm being naive here, right? And so because a lot of us who are in the community doing this work, we're doing this work on our knuckles, you know what I mean? And so there is a need for funding, and so I just think about like individual plan of service, the people who we need are in need. So how do we actually service them? You know what I'm saying? And so this goes back to the effectiveness. I'm not by no means saying that funding isn't needed. When I heard somebody say we just hired, like we need to hire, you know what I'm saying? So what do that process look like? You know what I'm saying? And we can learn a lot from each other, So the funding is important. I think it's depending on the level that we are, you know what I'm saying, as a council. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for that clarification, Calvin. And I think one of the points that you made too is just that you all have gained so much experience just within, you have such a breadth of experience that you bring to your councils to begin with, but your councils themselves have also gained so much experience over this project timeline. And as we start to move into sustainability, all of you are resources for each other while you're at different points of moving along in this journey to sustainability. So there's so much potential to tap into the relationships that exist here across these councils to learn from each other as you continue on in your journey, so that you aren't reinventing the wheel. There's so much really great best practices and information that you all have here in this space. So I encourage you all to use each other as resources. So I think we have a couple more questions. Yeah, And we probably talked about this a little bit already, but we'll see how you all are feeling. And we have a little bit more discussion also a little bit later on in the collaborative. So if we breeze through this, that gives us a little bit more time for our discussion a little later on. So first question, where do you feel your council is sitting currently? And is this where they would like to be?
I can answer that. Yeah, I wanted to say that I want to answer question 2 first. I think that we're having MPHI come in and do some strategic planning for us for the next year. I think that's how we're going to go to the next level, is by getting someone who's looking from the outside at what we're doing. Sometimes internally you see what you see, but sometimes someone from the outside can come in and give you some other perspectives so that you can help move forward. So I feel that we can be in even a better position, but I think that the staff that's coming tomorrow are going to help us to be able to deal with where we need to go next. I think that we need some help with that. And so we called in Tracy, who was very intuitive. She said, hey, that's technical assistance. That's what we need. And definitely that's what we're doing. And so I don't know what challenges we might get through until we go through the session starting tomorrow. And that might identify some places where we need to beef up training or other information for HEC members. And so I think that's just going to open up more opportunities to see where we might fill in gaps for ourselves.
That's so exciting. And I know that Lindsay and Danielle are very excited for this session as well, because your council is so energized. So yes, utilizing the resources that are available to you in looking at question number 2 to help you take that next step or move to the next level within your council, especially when you're thinking about strategic planning or sustainability, because sustainability should be a part of your strategic planning when you're thinking about the work and the timeline and how it could potentially move forward with whatever supports exist. So yeah, the resources that you have that are accessible to you through this project can also help you to take that next step in your project, or from an outside perspective, help to kind of piece things together in a way that just provides more clarity. So thank you, Joyce. Any other, we don't have to go in numerical order. We can bounce around with the questions if there's one that stands out to folks. So we have, how could your council reach the next level? What challenges might the council need to navigate? Or any other questions that you may still have for all of us. So are there any of those questions that are standing out to you all that you'd like to respond to?
Hi, Laura. This is Chuck from Washtenaw County. I'm answering how could the council reach the next level? Very recently, our council decided that they wanted us as a health department to take a back seat. And what I mean by that, just to give you an example, is that we set up all of the meetings, we provided all of the agenda. So we were doing a lot of the not only logistics, but also the basically facilitating the meetings. And our council decided that they wanted to take the lead in those areas, even to the extent of where, for instance, we have a meeting tonight. We'll set them up in the space here at the health department, have a few words, and then they're going to meet by themselves without us present. And so I think in terms of reaching the next level, this is the first step to that, where the council will be able to work together. And that's important because like other councils, our council was born during COVID, which means they were Zoom. And so it didn't allow for that back and forth. It didn't allow for that relationship building for the council to be able to do work together. And so I think that step that they took in the last meeting is a way in which they can reach the next level. And with us just providing that backbone support of, okay, what do you need to make this part of the work plan happen? And what can the health department do to help facilitate that?
I love that you shared that, Chuck, because that makes me go back to our systems level activity we all did in person together a few months ago. I can't believe it's already been that long, but I think you're really touching on power dynamics and starting to look at relational change and relationships that you have and how that power sharing takes place as the council has the capacity to be able to take on that role moving forward. So I love it. That's just systems change that's happening in real time. So really great. Yeah, Danielle's got a comment here too, just for extra kudos. Love it. Sue, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks. Sue Salhaney from Judson Center, Macomb Health Equity. I appreciate what you just shared, Chuck, because we, as a backbone agency in Macomb, have been trying to shift the dynamics of our council as well. But it's been a challenge because we do the same. We have a coordinator who right now is the position's vacant. So it's myself and our outreach worker, Dottie, and we do all the agendas. We do all the conversation facilitating. Sometimes we feel like we're doing all the conversation, even because we're really trying to draw out sustainability planning, but also giving ownership of the council to the council. And so one of the strategies that we are trying right now is to add a co-chair. So we have our council facilitator who Backbone organization has hired, but I'm trying to get a chair council member to be a co-chair to start shifting council to council. But it's hard, and I don't know if anybody else has tried that in addition to what you've spoken to, Chuck. But we're going through it right now and trying to make progress, but it's been difficult, to get that engagement and trying to figure out, how to really engage people at the next level because we're not quite getting there.
Absolutely.
So that's our challenge.
Thank you for sharing that, Sue. I know that there are some co-chair structures on our health equity councils, and I see Nicole's hand was raised first. So I want to make sure we get some folks to share feedback for you.
Calvin, I beat you again.
It's impressive.
So my thought that I had just kind of sharing this conversation, and I think, looking for ways to kind of advance or whatever things could be provided. I wonder if there's a way, and this is just general ideas that I'm throwing out, but in terms of being able to build efficacy just with like facilitation, I almost wonder if there is an existing like facilitator training that we could perhaps identify and maybe help support some of our members. So maybe they do have an interest in perhaps like helping to facilitate meetings, but they just don't feel they have like the skill set for it. So I wonder if that's something that we could kind of find collectively. And then I had another thought about like a Robert's Rules of Order training, just because a lot of councils will utilize that. Is that something that perhaps could be leveraged as well? Because I think, I agree with everyone. It's like, how do we back up from this backbone organization kind of role and start to hand stuff off, but you don't want to necessarily hand things off unless, they have appropriate training and support and all that. And so maybe there are opportunities out there where we could leverage something like that.
Calvin, go ahead.
So I'm hoping that I say this right, but I wanted to thank both Sue, Nicole, and Charles, right? Because the gist of Health Equity Council work is about allowing the council to lead. And so I think what they're running into is like natural to all councils, right? And so one of the things that is required for every council is that I think it's like to have 3 community members on them, right? I don't know the exact number, but and so our community members is those who we look to as our expertise, like our boots on the ground, sort of like sort of folks, you know. And so the trauma is real, and that's what I want to share with y'all. You know, the trusting, you know, people believing that like people going to parachute out. You know what I mean? And so all the TA support, you know, setting up the meetings and the meeting places, all are necessary things because it ain't that there's not competence, it's that we've been conditioned to do stuff in the way of people who were receiving the funding, right? You know what I mean? And so this is how we got to sustain this funding in this way. And so now in that conditioning, we hold each other to those sorts of truths, right? And so we're undoing those things as we build trust, as we get to know each other, as Charles is saying. And because we were formulated in COVID and everything was on Zoom, we didn't really have a real opportunity to get these personal this personal knowledge of one another. And so that's what I would think about individual plan of service, and the people that we need are in need. You know, once we get to understand them, and then we'll be able to better support because they'll be able to better share their needs, and then we can be able to be more adequate, you know. So I think, you know, that's what Moses has done for us. It's just said it got out the way. Like it just got out the way and said, y'all figure it out, you know. And so co-chairs does work, you know what I'm saying? I'm a co-chair. We created committees, you know. So offering all these sorts of tools are tools that are necessary in order to say that you got this, you know what I mean? Like you're capable of, you know. It's just all those things that, you know, we need because of how we've been conditioned, you know. So it's no knock on any institution. Just know that trauma is there, you know, with regards to institutions, program, and organization when we're looking at it from a community lens. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Joyce, your hand is raised.
Yes, yes. I want to say is I'm listening to the conversations. I guess Saginaw County as a backbone agency kind of started out differently. They came and got me from the community. So I'm the coordinator, but I'm a community person. I have no health background per se, other than I consider myself a person who really understands this community as a former mayor of the city, current school board member, current co-pastor at my church. I know people because I've been here for 70 years, 71 years in this community. And so when they did that with Tracy after 2 weeks and sitting with her, and she's saying to me, I said, she says, you know, you're going to have to take over some of these things. I said, are you telling me that you want me to start doing and executing some things? Wrong thing to say, because it's exactly what I did. So I began to pull the people together from all over the community, every race, every background we pulled them together, and we have a very powerful team. They tell me what to do. They say, oh, no, that's not what we said. We're making a motion here and over there. And I said, got to carry it through because that's what the people say they want to do. But that makes a powerful group. They feel empowered. They'll tell Tracy what they want her to do. They'll tell me. But the idea is that they started out with someone from the community. I plan the meetings. I organize the meetings. And we have people from our HEC group who will give up right now. I'm looking for my agenda for September 24th. And I've already got 3 subject matters I have to handle on that agenda because people from HEC have brought some things that need to be brought up and need to be dealt with. Okay, and we do, our backbone agency, sometimes wants to put some things on the agenda, bring some things to the table, but they bring it just like other people. So we have a kind of different dynamic because ours is community-based and it is run by the people in the community. And I promise you, you have to come to our meetings and see how they run. And our people are empowered to say, hey, this is what we want to do.
Thank you, Joyce. So there's lots of different dynamics too that play into this, as I'm hearing that every group's own relationship dynamics are different and in different points. And although you all started in COVID, and so that was a unique landscape to navigate, the relationships have all been established in different ways. And so the way that you continue to approach how your council is sustainable moving forward, how as a backbone organization you may start to take some steps back and let your council really lead in its own way. I think a lot of that is really through the relationships that you have and the trust that you have within those groups to know what they feel comfortable to do and how you can support them in being successful in that way. So I think there's a lot of really, again, great resources here in this space in terms of being in different points of the process. So you're all resources to each other that I encourage you to reach out and gather more feedback and more insight from each other in these different ways that you are facing challenges or opportunities with sustainability and planning for future. Yeah, so we are at 3:55. I know that we have some more conversation to get to in this learning collaborative today. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. I think we're good to go. Yes. All right, wonderful. So I think we're good to go. But if you have any other questions in terms of the sustainability framework that we presented, self-assessments that you'll be doing, kind of things that we'll be sharing here in just a minute. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our team here. We're happy to always be a resource to support you in your efforts and potentially take it to the next step or the next level, whatever that may be. But you're all doing wonderful work, and I appreciate you being so transparent and honest in this conversation today. So I will pass it back over to, I think, Lindsay, but I could be wrong.
It's me.
I was
Thanks,
right.
Laura. Thank you. And thank you all for doing such a great job sharing and discussing. And, you know, I think it's really great to hear how everyone's approaching these, you know, different pieces. And, you know, hopefully you will connect like Laura shared, because I mean, you can learn so much from one another. So thanks again for that. So this next part of the presentation is sort of just our recommendations for one way that you could potentially present the sustainability self-assessment to the council. We are going to ask that you do this and then come up with a combined score to email back to myself and Danielle. So this is one way that you could consider one process to do that. And so this is not like the one right way. It could be a bunch of different ways, but this is just one idea. So there are 3 resources that you will need for this particular activity. And so we will share these in the chat. It will also be emailed to you afterwards. So you will have access to this. So the first is the larger sustainability self-assessment. And I shared that in the chat earlier, and I know that Laura is going to be doing that again shortly, but this one is the larger self-assessment. It talks about all of the components, all 9 components that we talked about, and it has descriptors for each. The second resource that will be needed is sort of the scoring card for the individual self-assessment. So council members can take this and review and then create their own scores. And there's some space for notes so they can write down like justifications for why they selected the particular scores that they did. And then finally, there's the self-assessment overall summary results. So this particular document is once all the scores from your counselor are combined and you have final scores, then you'll have that recorded in this document, and then you'll be able to share that with myself and Danielle. So those should be coming through and you'll be able to see them, and then they'll be emailed to you as well. So the first step when we're thinking about a process for how to present this to the council, just really thinking about level setting with participants, like what are we trying to do, just explaining the background information, sort of providing them with an overview of the self-assessment, why it's important to conduct it, and how it will help inform sustainability planning. And just take some time to open up and let your council ask any questions that they may have about the document. And so you can share the PowerPoint slides with them, or we have all this information that's available on Padlet too. All of these resources that'll be emailed to you. So you can share any of the resources that you feel are particularly relevant. You know your council best, so you know what questions they may ask and what resources they like to have. So sort of just sharing that information, sharing the ask with them. And then for step 2, providing them with a full self-assessment and then the individual sort of like scoring card, and allowing your council members enough time to sort of process and complete the assessment on their own. So they're able to really sort of think through the different sustainability framework components and think about like where they would score the council. And just note that there's no like failing score. We're just sort of getting baseline information to see like where do they feel that the council is at and where is their opportunity for improvement. So just sort of trying to be honest with themselves and with the council about where they feel that the council is at for the various components. And so this could be done in a couple of ways. So maybe if sometimes people are really good at homework, and this could be sent ahead of time and asked to be completed prior to a council meeting. But some people are not so good at homework because they have busy lives. So if that's the case, then you could set aside some time during a meeting to allow participants to read and look through the rubric and do the scoring during that time. So there's just a couple of different options. And again, you know your council best, so you can decide, what might work best for them. For the third step, you would ask the individuals to sort of fill out that individual summary of results document, where they would compile their individual results and sort of like document like what they voted each component under. And you can see the image here where it's each of the components, the 9 components are there in the first column, and then sort of like a checkbox of where each the person voted or ranked them. And so again, this could be done in advance of a meeting, or this could be done setting aside some time during the meeting to ask the different council members to sort of complete this individual components. Finally, after everyone has a chance to sort of individually process and sort of rank the components, then we would recommend coming back together as a group to compare the individual results and sort of have that discussion about the scores and kind of find sort of like a community, like a common score for the entire council. And so this could be done in a couple of ways. So it could be done as one large meeting. So everybody sits down with their individual score sheets, and you have a facilitated discussion, and you share like under component by component what everybody ranked and why, and then come to sort of an agreement. Or you could do this in a series of meetings. Maybe you tackle this like half of them get done in meeting 1, half of them get done in meeting 2. And so depending on what your agenda is and what you think is best, there's a couple of different ways. And just making sure that everybody has a chance to talk about how they scored the council and provide their rationale for why. And then these are some example discussion questions. And you can like add to this list, of course, but depending on what you're seeing when you're looking at the individual scores and comparing them. So, kind of wondering like how consistent are their responses across the council members. So if it's really consistent and the scores seem to be very similar, you could ask what tools do we credit with keeping team members informed and involved in the progress? So like, why did we rank them similar? What are we doing really well? If like most people are ranking them similarly and maybe 1 or 2 people sort of disagree, really asking them to explain like why they rank them differently and what opportunity is there to reach greater consensus on the scores, really talking things through. And then if answers are sort of all across the board or divergent, and what may be some of the reasons for these scores amongst the team, and sort of really having folks explain why they ranked them the way that they did, and see if we can like get folks to come in and agree maybe on a different score. So the last step is trying to reach a common score, a consensus would be ideal. We know that's not always the case. And so if that's not the case and a consensus cannot be reached, then we'd recommend taking the average of the scores together to have one final score. And so these, again, just as a reminder, and it's on all the documents, but these are what each individual scores mean. So pre-awareness is 1, awareness is 2, interaction is 3, and mastery is 4. And then finally, really sharing that final score summary with everyone, making sure to come back and talk about this is sort of how we all agreed that we ranked. And maybe some people weren't there for all the meetings, so really nice to get everybody back on the same page. And then using this tool to help develop the sustainability plan moving forward. So where are areas where we could see improvement? How can we make progress towards mastery? You know, obviously we're probably not all going to get to mastery, and that's fine, but just like using this just as information to ways to know this is where we are, and these are some ideas that we have for moving forward in this next year. So I want to pause there to see what questions, you know, again, this was just a recommendation for a process, and you all, I'm sure, will tweak it and make it your own. But are there any questions or thoughts that have come up for you all as I've shared this process? Chandra.
I apologize if I missed it, but I just wanted to get a clarity on a couple of basic points. So is there a timeline for when this has to happen? And is there something specific that's supposed to happen with if there's going to be a report out for what each council found?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can skip to that slide right now. So we are asking that by September 26th, you return the sort of the summary for that you will complete altogether to us. You'll email that to myself and Danielle. And then this is going to eventually be used to help your council create and develop the sustainability plan, which will be a deliverable for this grant.
Okay, and so the timing for the plan is?
So, I mean, maybe, yeah, Danielle, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so we haven't set an official date for the overall plan, each overall council self-assessment. So that summary piece, that is what's due on 9/26 to give folks a chance to at least get in, you know, 1 or 2 council meetings to go over everything. And that was kind of our like gateway, see how those results go. If people need to have like specific TA as a result of this, or you have more questions or more resources, we want to be able to be pretty responsive to that. So we haven't put an official date on the sustainability plan. We've thought about the final sustainability plan being due towards the end of this calendar year, so like December or January. But we haven't, you know, done that officially yet. Just kind of want to see where folks are at and like where you're falling, if there's like a need for more supports and like flushing out specific components, just like we kind of had our discussion today about a lot of people's council structures and like what that looks like and what that means for being able to sustain the work going forward. Does that clarify things?
Thank you. A little bit. So actually, when you gave a hypothetical, I will just say that I could see that feeling, and I may be the only one, feeling a little bit soon. So I was thinking that you do the assessment, but then the expectation might be that you wouldn't have to have the plan until possibly as early as March of next year, or that that's part of where you end this, you know, like this cycle. Because I just think that there's okay, what do we have to, and I'm just going to be real, that for some people it's what do we got to do for the state versus what do we really need to do? And I obviously think both of those are really critical, and technically they should be in alignment. And so to actually have an operational sustainability plan so that you're like literally saying we're prepared to be sustainable by the end of this grant if no more funding comes, like from the state. Obviously, if that's really kind of where you want people to go, I just think that then it's very helpful to be really clear about that upfront, and that might need to be communicated a little bit more. But I love how everything's been communicated, but if you hear the heart of what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
Yeah.
the feedback for
Mhm.
sure. And that is the intention, right? That's why we've been spending kind of so much time with it, is because my hope is in the worst case scenario, I run out of funding, all of those things happen, that you have something in place that then can keep you going. And so really, like, the sustainability plan, like, yeah, it can just be like whatever to like check a box. We could have checked a box like way back when we had the first session back in April. But the intention is that like this sustainability components would help to feed into what activities you're actually doing. I don't want you all to, and if it feels like that's what it's creating is like going anti that, then that's its own discussion, and I'm happy to have that. Um, but the intention here is to really take a look at like what are the elements that you currently have, where are the gaps? Can we spend time now while we have money to do the work to fill in some of those gaps so that when September 30 of 25 comes, no one's stressed, or at least there's less stress, right? And so that's the way I look at sustainability, because like you can create a sustainability plan and it just be a box checking activity. That's what a lot of grants do.
Yep.
But
Yep.
that's the hope. That's not the hope here. And so that's why I say like when that actual plan is due, we don't have like an official date on that, because I really
Mhm.
want to see what comes out of the self-assessment. Like, do people feel like there are particular elements that y'all need support in, just like you've really voiced to us, hey, like, can we have some resources about building facilitators? Can we have some resources about Robert's Rule of Orders and various things like that? Those are like tangible pieces that now I can turn around and provide out. And so that hopefully that element can be strengthened within your council. I got more.
Well, if I could, I really appreciate again how you guys have done everything. But what I would just say, especially in light of what you all have just shared, just from my experience, like working, and it's a very kind of delicate matter. But I think that there's some other things that need to be a part of the process. So to be very basic. So I know that that our council can fill out this self-assessment. And they could say, oh, I think we need more of this, think they need more of that. That's totally separate from really understanding what does it actually take to be sustainable as a council, because the reality, and I don't know if I would hypothesize that ours is not that different. I don't think most of the council know what it's taken to be sustainable, even for the years that this grant has been in place. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think there actually is a lot of work to make it more than an exercise, and I think people do need to be clear, like right now, we really are saying like there will be no more funding as of September 2025. And whatever structure, whatever funding, what is needed to make sure that the work is going to continue, you're not really doing it for us, but we're trying to help you do it for you.
That's it in a nutshell. What I
Yep.
Yeah,
So thank you guys.
But I really appreciate the feedback, and if there are ways that we can make it so that it's more robust, like I don't want it to like turn into its own job for you, of course, but like if you have things that you want to see, or that you're like, hey, this is a key part of it, like even what you just said about what does it mean for sustainability, like I think a lot of people in this group have talked about this a lot and are familiar with it. But it may be a different perspective if you're not used to using grant funds, or like thinking about work that's happening in like these cycles of start stop. Yeah, so all that to say, like, the feedback is always really helpful for us to make sure that the things that we generate are actually useful and not just us like hanging out. Um, so I'll think about what you've said more for sure. But if there are other things that I should think about or reflect on, feel free to always let me know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Nicole, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's any flexibility with that 9/26 date, just because like I'm thinking about my next couple meetings and like we've had 3 office hours to kind of process in our brain all of these sustainability components. And we do have a plan for a visioning session in September, so we do have longer meetings than normal. But what I don't want to happen is I don't want our folks, they're not homework people, so it's definitely going to happen in person. But I wonder if there's an opportunity, if there's any flexibility with that, because I would like to give them, even if we can even start in August, but I worry about being able to get like adequately level set with them and not completely overwhelm them through the process. And if we need to talk about this more at a different time, I'm fine with that. I just want to put that out there.
No, I think that's a good point. And I think
I'm
that
also reasonable about the fact that a grant year starts in October, so if we have to have stuff done, I get it. But I just wanted to put that out in the universe.
you know, y'all are just checking boxes for me, and that's not a thing that I really believe in. So like I have done with most kind of deadlines, I'm always happy to work with people on a case by case, but I also kind of want to get a sense from folks right now. How do you feel about that like September deadline? If that feels like no bueno, like that's not gonna work for us, or like you would need more time.
I
And
would personally like another month, but obviously everybody else can share whatever they think. But I think another month would then allow us to
let me see if I can
spread similarly to how we did through these office hours sessions, and I think really support our folks.
okay. So Ravana, Brian, Calvin, Chandra, everyone's kind of saying that they would like to have more time. That's good feedback for us to have. So we were just like, we literally had a conversation this week saying, hey, what should be the due date? And I said, I don't know, maybe the end of the fiscal year. So we can, does like the end of October seem like that makes sense to folks? Either you can do a reaction or drop it in the chat and I'll, end of October works for Nicole. Okay. Definitely, yeah, okay. And then, of course, still let me know, because I know October can be tricky because we are restarting contracts and sometimes there are small breaks that happen in October, but we can always stay in communication about all of this. So maybe the goal by the end of September is like to start to share this with your council. So, sharing the different components, starting those conversations about the self-assessment, so that then when it is due let's come up with a date now while I'm on video. October 29th. Just to give a few days before the end of the month. But focus in September about sharing all of this with your council, getting their questions, getting their concerns, and then diving into that self-assessment. Really, the process that Lindsay shared is really something that was more like proposed as like a theoretical way that can look. If you have more questions about how that could look, or you have your own idea of what you feel like it could look like, just let me know. That's totally fine. We aren't super strict about it. We just really want you all to spend the time thinking about it and really establishing and like rooting yourselves in the framework. Chandra, did you have more to add, or was your hand still up?
Sorry, I'll take it down. Thank you.
No, no, it's fine. And then Dana, you had your hand up and then it went down.
You are correct. I took it back down after you started talking about the dates. I was just looking at the next time our HEC council meets. And so we're one of the groups where it does seem to work out better if we do things during the meetings. And then, but anyway, you've extended the date, so that's fine. And then we will be meeting with our HECs by then 2 times, plus our email communications. So. And I also wanted to say, if we need to do our spotlight on next month, like I'm okay with that.
Oh, no, we still have the collaborative meeting next week. I just didn't send the reminder out yet to not confuse.
Oh, okay. I did. Okay, I think I invited people to the wrong meeting then.
No, they're welcome to this meeting as well. So it's totally fine.
I
But
get it. Okay.
I just dropped in the chat, and that
Thanks.
we'll update the slides when we share the slides, of course, but 10/29 will be the new due date for the self-assessment, with the caveat that we would like you to start working with your councils around these components and sharing it with them and really discussing it. Yeah, spooky sustainability planning. We can put some pumpkins on it or something. What other questions do people have?
I did re-raise my hand.
I know.
I don't know if there's somebody before me.
Nah.
Okay. I just wanted to highlight, I don't know how many other councils, I just want to be real about it. I know for our council, we're definitely focused on voter education around health equity. So I appreciate the additional time to October 29th. And if that's what it needs to be, but I just want to say that
yeah,
that our primary focus up through October really was going to be more related to that. So adding that on top of it, definitely, we're likely to, maybe we can just do it all in a session, but going to the deeper point of, it's one thing to just provide you with where the group is. It's a whole nother level to really look at the developing the sustainability plan, that it won't happen in earnest. And I just think there's a benefit that the more people understand what a real sustainability plan needs to be for your individual council, then actually better informs how they even complete the self-assessment. So, so appreciate the additional time, and I'm not trying to push it back. Just want to say that there may be, some more that you're hearing over the next 2 months because of just feeling a little bit of pull.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I've been, there are a lot of feelings that come up during election season. So yeah, I didn't add that consideration in. But we can definitely talk and communicate. I don't think that we should move it right now, because at least that'll give us some time to review your individual results. And if we need to be like very quick in our response as like your TA, we can incorporate some elements into the collaborative meeting that will be in November. So like I said, we'll just stay in communication, much like I do with all of you, around due dates and like working out what has come up, whether that's, other shifts and focuses or illness, what have you, life happens. So, yeah, we can definitely talk more about it. What's up, Calvin?
I kind of heard Sandra first, because I know that like the elections are coming up and we're busy all the way up to the election. But I also heard, I believe, Laura in her presentation talking about how we could break it up. And so I just thought about being able to do it, in 2 sessions, know what I mean? Because most people aren't going to do homework, but beginning in September, like being able to share it with them and helping them to be mindful so that we can, tackle it all by the end of October, in considering all the other stuff that we're doing as well. And I thought that's what I'm about to say, Chandra was saying with regards to, meeting, like the grants responsibility, as opposed to ensuring that we fulfill, the obligations and duties or responsibilities which we are supposed to fulfill.
Mm, Yeah, I mean, you can really break this up however you see fit. Like we broke it up across the 3 sessions. Um, it could look like a whole variety of things. Maybe that first initial ask is maybe y'all share the recordings from these office hours, as maybe they have some time to review those, and kind of come with some questions, or that first level setting conversation around like discussing what does sustainability mean. I know, like, for really coming into the public health space, I didn't really think about sustainability beyond, like, recycling, environment, like, you know you may have to start at that like level and really have those base discussions. I can't say that it will be um one size fits all in terms of how you'll do this. And so that's why I say, like, I'm pretty reachable. If you need to like talk about kind of very individual level differences, and I know that each of you do already have things that you planned on doing in September and October, and even if you have a meeting next week, that's fine. And so we just say, like, do what makes the most sense for you all in your work, and how you want to integrate that. And if you need to have support around how to integrate that, then reach out. Um, we're not asking you to complete this alone. We're still here as like your TA support. Thing is getting the juice out of it. Yeah, but I think that that can be like a part of, teasing out that final scoring. Maybe you do have some initial discussions, and I know y'all have, really developed a rapport with your council members. So, you can have really open conversations, asking people to kind of dialogue. Um, People have also done very interesting things when it came to reviewing their mini grants and like having discussions in those spaces in very innovative ways. And so thanks, Sue. Um, even taking some of the learnings from that, where you did have to take some things for it, come to a consensus, take some of those learnings from that and see what you can use when it comes to doing the self-assessment. Um, yeah. What other questions? Comments, concerns? Cool. Well, we will send a follow-up email with the recording, and the different resources that we shared today, as well as, like I said, that updated due date. Don't wait until the due date to think about this, because I'll probably ask about it the next time I see you. Um, so, spend as much time as you need, and really, keep us updated on how that progress goes with you all, so that we can figure out the plan that makes the most sense for what it looks like to be sustainable as a coalition, because I've talked to a lot of people about sustainability planning, and no one has given me a good answer on that. So we're hoping to find one, or create one. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.